With 13 players on international duty from Celtic, I mean, that's quite a lot of players when you think about it. It's probably one of the top teams in Europe have that amount of players on international duty. But when you look at the players that went out on international duty and you look at the player that came back that didn't even go because he was injured, Dyson Myra, you look at one Scottish player, and hats off to Scotland for qualifying for Germany next year without even kicking a ball, thanks to Spain winning against Norway. Spain had a goal ruled offside via VAR. The irony of that, isn't it? One player that didn't manage to even get a game for Celtic just now, even though when you look at his stats, I'm going to tell you the stats of this player before I name him. He scored 27 goals. He's had 23 assists in only 122 games for Celtic. That tells you that the player has a lot to offer, but a lot of Celtic fans don't like him as a player. I'm talking about David Turnbull. When you look at David Turnbull, he is running down his contract at Celtic. In a couple of months' time, he'll be able to talk to anyone for free and we can let him go for absolutely nothing. Now, at a time where I'm always on this channel saying that we should be doing more by our Scottish players, we should be doing more to bring more through the youth system, and at the end of the day, if we get the players right, if we get the players coming through the youth system right, we can make even more money, we can make even more and that's what the club is all about. The club is all about making profit. Look at the money that we made for Kieran Tierney, for one. It's fine buying in these foreign players for 1.5 million, 1.2 million or 3 million and selling them on for 10 2 years later, but the satisfaction of being able to watch your own come up and come through the system and far outweighs it. I know that David Turnbull came from Motherwell, but when you look, he's got Matt O'Riley, Rio Hatate in front of him, and even on the bench you've got Tomoki Awata, you've got Odin, and Kwon even in front of him, and there's players that are on international cap and he isn't. So tell me what you think. Should Turnbull maybe leave? Do you think that David Turnbull's stats, I mean, he does have a lot to offer. He can score a cracker of a goal from outside the box. He didn't get his chance last season at all under the previous manager, even though he held his own the first season that the previous manager came into the job, and he held his own until the Christmas time. Well, but he got an injury just before it. Let's talk about other international players for Celtic that have been playing for their international teams. We'll look at one who, even though he was on the end of a 4-0 beating last night, he managed to catch the eye of the Cuba boss. Cuba boss, we're talking about Luis Palma. Luis Palma said, the Cuban boss said that he has a player and a half. He said that basically Celtic got some player on their hands and he could go on to be a top player. It's not the first time that Palma has impressed on international duty for Honduras, and he did cost Celtic 3.5 million, and his last outing on his national side, he continues to make waves in the international press over that end of the world. They went on to talk about the fact that he has scored 2 goals in 2 consecutive appearances, and then he scored one in the Champions League that was ruled offside. We did get beat by Feyenoord and Lazio. We need to improve when it comes to the Champions League, but that's a talk for another video. But it has been said by the Cuba boss that he has the potential to become a star in Glasgow. One person that is a star in Glasgow just now is Matt O'Riley. Matt O'Riley was in that little haven in Spain, a little island just off the mainland, about half an hour's boat trip in fact, Mallorca, and he was called up to the Danish squad. He was on holiday, got a call from Morten Vikhorst and Kasper, and he said he was sitting in Mallorca, and 8 hours later he was back in Denmark. It all happened so quick. Vikhorst said there was a very good chance that I would get to go, and I had to pack things really quickly. He said it was unfortunate. He says he was trying to sort of have a nice quiet holiday on the Spanish island that does also have the holiday home of Brendan Rodgers, and it's where Carl McGregor met Brendan Rodgers before Brendan became manager. O'Reilly said, look, I was dragged away from my holiday. He says, I was holidaying on the Spanish island. I got the call by the new manager of the Scottish champions. He said, I've been told that I'm going to the international squad. He said I had to make my full debut on this coming Tuesday. He said when the Danes travelled to San Marino, they beat Scotland once a long time ago. He said that he had to wear a cap and a hoodie so that he didn't get noticed when he was checking out early. So he didn't want any of the press to catch a hold of it. So let's see if he does manage to get a game for Denmark. That would be good if he does. Another player that was on the end of a loss last night, a lot of the Celtic players got a bit of a pounding last night, was Carter-Vickers. Carter-Vickers played the last 25 minutes for the United States in a friendly during a game against Germany. You're always expecting Germany to beat the USA in football. I wouldn't expect anything less. Despite the 3-1 defeat, Carter-Vickers' inclusion for the national team after a lengthy injury is a great development for both club and country. He's obviously came through that 25 minutes with nothing. We were all hoping that he wasn't going to get called up to the national squad, but he has been, and he managed to play. And 2 second half goals from the Germans secured them a 3-1 victory. On to another player for Celtic that it has been mentioned that he could go on to become a player at the top level of European football. Celtic midfield player got only his 4th cap for his country after appearing for a second half substitute in the Japan-Canada game. Yeah, the game that it's going to be interesting when the lads get back to the dressing room, because the Japanese boys are going to absolutely rip Alistair Johnson to death for getting beat 4-1. Former Japanese defender has suggested that the new international role for Reo Hatate, he says a new international role for him, where the player that used to play left back, Reo Hatate used to play left back. He said Reo Hatate out at left back, it was very high level technique. Out of all the subs against Canada, his problem is getting into the midfield triangle that Japan plays. He should be looking at another position so we can make more use of his skills, he says. I think there's more options for Rio than what we actually think. He's a player that at Celtic, when he ticks all the right boxes, and he makes the team click, and he can make some fantastic passes and score some cracking goals, as we've seen just before the international break. I think Reo Hatate, he is a 2-footed player, and that's why people kind of struggle in what position he actually plays. Like, he can pass and he can shoot from anywhere on the pitch. But this guy seems to think that Reo Hatate could go out and could be one of the biggest and brightest stars to come out of Japan in a long time. Talking about biggest stars, Chris Sutton. We need to talk about Chris Sutton. Chris Sutton sent out a brilliant message. We always like to end the video on and finally, like the news used to do back in the day, a little news thing to just cheer us up after whatever news has been read today. Former Celtic striker Chris Sutton says that Brendan Rodgers will be relishing the chance to put another Rangers manager to the sword this season and beyond. Michael Beale wasn't the first manager seen off by Rodgers, and don't go into this, look, Rodgers walked away, we've moved on for that. I'd seen a few comments like that in videos before. Let's just get over it. He's here, he's doing well, and he's going to prove a lot of people wrong. And remember, Brendan Rodgers did say, look, for those who don't want me here and those that don't think I should be here, come back and stand on the doorsteps of Celtic Park come May. Philippe Clement has been handed a multi-year contract. Another one that they're going to have to pay off. There's no doubt there's going to be all sorts of hype in the Scottish media saying that they've found the best manager since the last best manager that they found. Speaking about the new dawn at Ibrox, Sutton said Brendan Rodgers has seen plenty of Rangers managers off the premises. He'll be salivating at the prospect of putting another one to the sword. Perhaps I'm wrong. Perhaps Rodgers would have been quietly happy for Michael Beale to stay. Because let's face it, Michael Beale was absolutely brilliant. Agent Beale was fantastic for us. Mark Warburton didn't last long. People say, and there was one comment I seen yesterday saying that giving Steven Gerrard the same money as Rodgers, Steven Gerrard would be the better manager. My God, I think some people need to stay off the drink. Anyway, on that note, have a fantastic day, Celtic fans. I will see you on the live tonight around about 5:15 Celtic Park time. On that note, have a fantastic day, Celtic fans all around the world.